In the weapon's Refrain ultimate, you will face off against the primals Garuda, Ifrit and Titan. And finally, the Ultima weapon itself. To reach this final Ultima phase though, you will have to use Limit Break 3, 4 times in a row. Here's how that works. Each primal has a special puzzle mechanic that will awaken them if performed correctly. If a primal is woken, it will leave behind a glowing light puddle when defeated. Picking it up by standing on it will give you a buff called Beyond Limits. This buff will activate when Limit Break 3 is used, refilling the entire Limit Break bar for another Limit Break 3. Note that if you fail at waking a primal, you can still play the encounter up to Titan, so just keep going while progressing the primals. Slipstream is a cone-shaped AoE with no indicator on the ground. It can be dodged by moving behind Garuda after the cast has begun. Downburst is a cone-shaped tank buster with no cast bar. If Garuda is woken, Downburst will change and be shared damage instead. Mistral Song is indicated by a green marker over a player's head. After a short delay, a once again cone-shaped AoE will be shot in the direction of the marked player. The first player hit by that AoE will take greatly increased damage and drop a large pulsing AoE puddle at the location where they got hit. Mistral Shriek is a raid wide, dealing medium damage. Aerial Blast is Garuda's heavy raid wide. It will deal damage even through resurrection immunity, so don't revive just before it hits. Also note that there is a rather long delay between the snapshot at the end of the cast bar and the damage being applied to the party. Despite this delay, any and all mitigation and or shields that are applied after the cast ends will not count and simply be ignored. This applies to every boss mechanic with a cast bar. Feather Rain is indicated by Garuda jumping away and screaming. The position of 5 random players will soon after be hit by Feather Rain AoEs that deal damage and apply a stacking dot. Wicked Wheel is a simple circle AoE around Garuda. If Garuda is woken, the circle AoE will quickly be followed by a donut AoE. Satin Plumes spawn at the edge of the arena and tether to a random DPS player, following them around. They are harmless but will eventually put the raid to sleep if they live for too long. The Spiny Plume will tether to the first player to hit it and use heavy hitting auto attacks that apply a stacking debuff called Thermal Low. This debuff does nothing by itself, but it interacts with other mechanics and is the key to waking Garuda. When the Spiny Plume dies, it will explode in a circle AoE and spawn a Thermal High bubble. Standing inside this bubble will cleanse all stacks of Thermal Low. If a single stack of Thermal Low is cleansed, it will deal very low raid-wide damage. If 2 stacks are cleansed, it will deal high raid-wide damage and give Garuda 1 stack of Ether Charge. At 4 stacks of Ether Charge, Garuda will awaken. If 3 or more stacks of Thermal Low are cleansed, it will deal deadly raid-wide damage causing a wipe. Friction will target a random player and then quickly jump from player to player in a close range, dealing damage and applying a stack of Thermal Low to each player hit. Stay close together to make sure everyone gets a stack. Miso High Tethers explode in a small AoE that will deal some damage and cleanse the Thermal Low stacks of any one hit. The effects of cleansing Thermal Low stacks are the same as before, but at least 1 stack is required to survive the tether. Garuda is tanked near the A marker and faced north, away from the party. There will be a Slipstream and a Mistral Song. The off-tank will intercept the Mistral Song, so make sure nobody is standing between the off-tank and Garuda. After the Mistral Song resolves, the bosses pull south to the C marker and faced east. The party should stack tightly and closely behind Garuda. The Spiny Plume and 4 Satin Plumes will spawn. The Spiny Plume will always spawn near the D marker and should be grabbed by the off-tank. AoE them down quickly, but make sure not to kill the Spiny Plume yet. Meanwhile, the main tank will deal with a slipstream that is quickly followed by a downburst. Stay stacked for the upcoming Feather Rain, wait for the scream and move out. After Feather Rain resolves, the off tank should have 2 thermal low stacks and the spiny plume can be killed, spawning the thermal high bubble. Everyone except the off tank should step inside the bubble as soon as possible. Garuda will cast Mistral Shriek, heal this damage quickly, then the off tank will step in the bubble and cleanse their thermal low stacks. Garuda will now cast Friction twice in a row. Anyone standing inside the bubble will have the thermal low stack from Friction cleansed immediately, while anyone outside will keep the stack. For the first Friction, the off tank and both melees will stand outside, the rest of the party inside the bubble. For the second Friction, everyone will be outside. Heal up quickly, then one of the melees will step in the bubble to cleanse. Heal up again, then the other melee will cleanse. Make sure to wait for the party to be healthy before cleansing each time. Melees agree before the pull who goes first. Garuda should have 3 stacks of ether charge at this point. Stay close for another Feather Rain and prepare for the upcoming aerial blast. Garuda will spawn 2 clones beside her and they will jump away for a Feather Rain. Everyone should be stacked just south of the 4 marker, so the main tank can do a short dodge north and keep Garuda in the middle. The clones will appear on 2 random cardinals and target 2 random non-tanks with Mistral Songs. When these Mistral Songs resolve, the party will be on the 3 marker and the tanks will be intercepting 1 Mistral Song each, so they will have to check where the clones spawn and which one they have to cover. The clone priority for the main tank is north over west over east, and for the off tank, south over east over west. At the same time, there will be an Eye of the Storm, a huge donut AoE on the entire arena, and a Wicked Wheel. To simplify, let's say the clones spawned west and east. Shortly after everything went off, the clones will jump away for another Feather Rain. Also, the tanks will each drop a large pulsing AoE from the Mistral Song, so look for where the tanks are, wait for the scream, then run for a safe spot. Note that you will often encounter tanks as melees greeting for uptime, so running straight to Garuda can be dangerous. If Garuda has moved far away from the middle, she should be brought back and faced north. The party will once again stack tightly and closely behind Garuda. 4 Saturn plumes and 2 clones with meso-high tethers will spawn, 1 west and 1 east. The off-tank will grab the east tether and bring it close to the B marker. The caster will grab the west tether and bring it close to the D marker. AoE down the plumes while the main tank deals with another slipstream downburst combo. After the tethers go off, the clones will jump away for a Feather Rain. Note that the party will likely not be stacked for this Feather Rain, so be careful where you go. The main tank should dodge north and not return Garuda to the middle. The meso-high tethers will have cleansed 2 thermal low stacks from the off tank and awoken Garuda. Now there is just some simple mechanics left before Enrage. Garuda will cast a slipstream, then Wicked Wheel, Downburst, another slipstream, Feather Rain, and then Enrage. If Garuda is woken, everyone will quickly stack behind Garuda after the Wicked Wheel, including the main tank. This will both dodge the donut AoE of the Woken Wicked Wheel and resolve the downburst stack. Face Garuda away afterwards for the final slipstream. Also, be careful to check if Garuda is actually woken, and face downburst away from the party instead if she is not. When Garuda is defeated, a healer will pick up the light puddle and everyone will stack in the middle for the Ifrit transition. Radiant Plumes are large red AoEs that spawn in set patterns. Hellfire is Ifrit's heavy raid wide. It also ignores resurrection immunity. Vulcan Burst is an untelegraphed raid wide that deals low damage but has a strong knockback effect if the damage is not fully absorbed by a shield. Incinerate is a 3-hit AoE tank buster that applies a vuln-up. In a pinch it can be kitchen sinked by one tank or shared by provoking between hits, but it's usually invulned by one tank. Searing Wind is a debuff that will do some damage over time and cause a huge explosion around the affected player every 6 seconds until the debuff ends. Anyone else hit by the explosion will take high damage and be knocked back based on the health damage taken. This will usually cause any non-tank to fly into the wall. If Ifrit is woken, Searing Wind will last longer. Note that Searing Wind persists on your corpse after death and follows you through resurrection, so be careful when to res. Crimson Cyclone, aka Ifrit Dash, is a wide line AoE through the middle of the arena, indicated by Ifrit standing untargetable at the edge of the arena. Shortly before Ifrit dashes, he will start a bracing animation. If Ifrit is woken, the dash will be followed up by an X-shaped afterburn AoE across the original line AoE. Flaming Crush is indicated by a large red target marker. The marked player will be hit with a shareable flame AoE that also applies a dot to anyone hit. The more people stack and share the damage, the shorter the dot will be. Eruption will always target the 2 players without Searing Wind that are the furthest away from Ifrit. It will spawn 4 Eruption AoEs with delays under each targeted player. Infernal Nails spawn in a set pattern around the arena. They have to be killed before they disappear, or Ifrit's next Hellfire will be enraged and cause a wipe. Killing a nail will deal medium raid-wide damage and apply a very short vuln-up. If a nail is hit by an eruption, the nail will grow, gain 1 stack of vuln down, and 1 stack of ether charge. This can happen twice. If a nail with 2 stacks of ether charge is killed, Ifrit will gain 1 stack of ether charge. At 4 stacks of ether charge, Ifrit will awaken. Shortly after Garuda's defeat, Ifrit will appear on a random cardinal and brace for a dash. Most of the arena will then be covered by plumes, leaving only one safe spot in a cardinal next to Ifrit's. Find Ifrit, pop sprint and stare at the cardinal to his left or right. If that cardinal gets covered by a plume, run backwards away from it. If it is safe, run forwards into it. Ifrit will reappear in the middle of the arena facing south. The off-tank will grab Ifrit and stand on the C marker while the party stacks on A. Ifrit will cast Hellfire, then Vulcan Burst. The shield healer will apply a shield after the Hellfire cast to prevent the knockback. The off-tank will then use their invulnerability for the upcoming Incinerate. After the third Incinerate hit, the main tank will provoke and keep Ifrit for the rest of the phase. Four Infernal Nails will then spawn in the arena. Their relative formation will always be the same, with 2 of the nails standing close together and the other 2 far apart, with both pairs having 1 nail on a cardinal, the other on an intercardinal position. The orientation of this formation, however, is completely random. For the duration of this mechanic, the 2 close nails will be relative north. The main tank will pull Ifrit north in between the 2 close nails. The melees will follow and AoE the front nails down to below 40% HP, then focus on the boss. The caster and fizz range will go to the southwest and southeast nail respectively, start to bring their nails down to below 40% HP, and prepare to bait the upcoming eruptions. The range DPS agree before the pull who goes where. A random healer will be targeted for a Searing Wind. This healer will go straight south close to the wall, the other healer will stay in the middle. The second enmity, which should be the off-tank, will be tethered to a random DPS. They will take some damage over time and deal less damage the further they are apart. The off-tank should stay close enough to the tethered DPS player to minimize the effect while hitting the boss if possible. Be careful with AoEs to not kill the nails too early, and mind the Searing Wind. Eruptions will then start. The ranged DPS will move along the wall, hitting a nail with each eruption, so that every nail is hit at least twice. As soon as the nails have gained 2 stacks of ether charge and grown big, they can be killed. The order in which the nails are killed will become relevant later. It should always be the southeast nail first, then southwest, then northeast, then northwest. This will deal a lot of raid-wide damage, especially if nails are killed in quick succession due to the vulnerab. The Searing Wind healer should focus on self-healing and let the non-Searing healer focus on the party. If done correctly, Ifrit will now be woken. During this mechanic, also look for which of the front nails is standing on an intercardinal. This intercardinal will be the relative north for the upcoming clone dash mechanic. Ifrit will reappear and cast another Hellfire. The main tank will then pull Ifrit north to the wall. The ranged DPS will both go southeast to bait another set of eruptions. A random healer will be targeted for a Searing Wind and go west to the wall. The rest of the party will go with the main tank. When the eruptions start, the ranged DPS will walk along the wall counterclockwise and meet up with the party. Then 2 Ifrit clones will dash through both true cardinals of the arena. If your raid damage is very high, Ifrit can already be dead by now, but don't expect this to happen during prog. Even though the next major mechanic, often referred to simply as dashes, can reliably be skipped by an experienced group, chances are you will see it more than a couple of times, so I recommend learning it anyways. After the clone dashes, a second Searing Wind will be applied to the healer that didn't get one before. This healer will go clockwise away from the party. Make sure everyone is healed up for the upcoming Flame Crush. Ifrit will jump away and 4 Ifrits will drop on the edge of the arena in the same positions where the nails were earlier. They will then slowly dash in the same order as their respective nails were killed. One of the Ifrits will be the real one and perform a woken dash, leaving an afterburn effect. You can tell which Ifrit is real because he is on fire. Blue fire. The movement for this is very simple. The party should start by standing in front of the 4 Ifrit and pop Sprint. The Searing Wind Healer will be opposite the 4 Ifrit and mirror the party's movement. Now look for the Ifrit on blue fire. If he is on this side, you will have to run into the first 2 dashes, then stand still. If the blue fire dog is on that side, you will have to only run into the first dash and then stand still. That's it. Just move quickly after the first dash goes off and run a bit inside instead of at the wall to shorten the distance. After the dashes, pull Ifrit to the wall. The Searing Wind Healer will have one more explosion, so wait for it to expire before moving towards the group. The main tank will invuln and incinerate, while the ranged DPS get ready to bait another set of eruptions. After the eruptions, the party can stack behind Ifrit to share a flaming crush. Ifrit will then jump away and enrage. If Ifrit was not woken, the dash mechanic will be different. It will always be 4 clones next to each other, doing normal dashes in either clockwise or counterclockwise order. Stand in the middle of them or across the arena from them, and look for the bracing animation to know which way to run. When Ifrit is defeated, everyone needs to go very close to the wall. Titan will soon drop down into the arena, dealing heavily scaling proximity damage from the middle. The caster can then pick up the light puddle safely. Geocrush is a proximity-based AoE from a cardinal where Titan is slamming into the ground. Briefly before jumping away, Titan will face in the direction of the cardinal he will land on. Run to the other side to be safe. The arena will grow smaller with each Geocrush. Earthen Fury is Titan's heavy raid wipe. It also ignores resurrection immunity. Rock and Mountain Buster are 2 tank busters that will always happen together. Rock Buster will be first, dealing medium damage, then Mountain Buster deals very high damage. Tanks should use all of their mitigation for this. Weights of the Land are large AoEs that will appear under 4 random players twice in a row. If Titan is woken, there will be a 3rd set of AoEs. Tumult is a raid wipe that pulses for substantial damage. Landslides are a set of 5 line AoEs with a knockback that will send anyone hit flying into the wall. Titan will face a random player and then start casting Landslide. The line AoEs will always be in the exact same formation relative to where Titan is facing. If Titan is woken, a second set of 5 landslides with no indicator or cast bar will go off soon after the first. These 5 landslides will be in the middle of each gap in between the landslides from the first set. Wait next to a landslide and watch for the cast to end or the lines on the floor to disappear. Then step into one of the first landslides to dodge the second set. Although keeping melee uptime is possible, it should not be your priority during prog. Standing far away from the boss is safer, so melees and tanks should just disengage until they are very comfortable with the mechanic. The DPS check will not be the problem if you don't keep dying to landslides. Promise. Granite Jail is indicated by a yellow circular marker and a ticking sound. After a short delay, the affected player will be frozen in place and enclosed in a targetable rock jail. This jail will slowly cast Granite Impact, a deadly raid wipe. The jail has to be destroyed before the cast ends. Rocks drop in set patterns on the arena. Their landing is untelegraphed and will bury anyone hit, dealing lethal damage. After a while they will burst, exploding in an AoE. If burst hits a jail, that jail will also burst, enabling a chain reaction. Every bursted jail will leave behind a deadly AoE puddle. If Titan touches such a puddle, he will start gaining ether charge stacks over time, waking him at 4 stacks within the duration of 1 puddle. Right after dropping in, Titan will cast Earthing Fury. The party will stack on A while the main tank takes the first tank buster on C. Afterwards, Titan will cast Weight of the Land. Dodge the first weight to the left, the second back to A. Titan will quickly jump away for a Geocrush. When Titan lands, everyone has to get close to him quickly as he starts casting Upheaval, an unavoidable raid-wide knockback with some damage. While Upheaval is casting, the cardinal opposite of Titan will be covered in rocks, leaving only one safe spot, either to the left or right. Everyone has to position under Titan in such an angle that they will be knocked back exactly into that safe spot. To do this reliably, run straight to Titan, look at his target ring and stand on top of the nipple. Then turn around to see which side will be safe and walk just 1 or 2 little taps to the left or right to the edge of the nipple. You should then be perfectly in line with the safe spot. There are a couple frames of time to adjust if you missed by a little. As soon as you can move, run straight to the third marker from Titan, as the safe spot will be hit by another rock. For this mechanic, the markers in the middle between Titan and the safe spot are referred to as the first, second and third, or confusingly the 1, 2 and 3 marker. While running to the third marker, 3 random players will have been targeted for jails. You can run towards Titan, but stay in the center line of the arena to bait the upcoming landslide straight through the middle. The 3 jail players should dodge this landslide to the side where the safe spot was. As soon as the landslide indicators and the cast bar disappear, the jail players will move into the landslide. They have to stand on the first, second and third marker, 1 person each. To make it safer, the 1 jail can stand in the lower half of their marker, the 2 jail in the left or right half of the marker on the safe spot side, and the 3 jail on the left or right edge of the marker, also on the safe spot side. The most common priority for who goes where is tanks in front, then melees, then ranged, then healers. Or, you know, whoever just so happens to get marked 1, 2, 3, because chances are someone in your party will be running an automarker plugin, also commonly referred to as AM, Anime Music, Afflatus Misery, Angular Metal, Elegant Melon, The Melon, or simply just The Thing.
I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Anyways, the jail players will be locked in place as another landslide goes off. The safe spot rock will explode and hopefully start a chain reaction, freeing all the jailed players and reaching Titan. If a player marked for jail dies, a random player will be jailed instead. If you see this, you can try to run into their spot and pray that you will get their jail. After the jail's resolved, there is a tumult. Everyone will go and stack to the left of Titan. The off-tank will provoke Titan at this point. Next is Weight of the Land. Titan will not yet be woken when it starts, so it will only be 2 sets of AoEs. Afterwards is the first double landslide, then a Geo Crush. Try to position Titan in the middle of the arena so it's easier to see where he's facing. After landing, Titan will target a random healer for a jail. This jail should be placed near the 4 marker, while Titan is pulled a bit towards the middle and faced away to the wall again. The jail has to be killed manually this time, so start hitting it as soon as possible. Titan will then target the same healer with a landslide, 2 tumults and a tank buster. After the tank buster, the main tank and melees will run through Titan to stack with the off tank at the wall. The main tank will also provoke Titan back. The ranged DPS and healers will go to the wall opposite of Titan. The middle of the arena will be bombarded with rocks in a semi-random circular pattern. Just assume this is a death zone and you'll be fine. Titan will cast Weight of the Land. Both groups will stay tightly stacked while dodging the weights counterclockwise, then clockwise, then wait for the third weight to actually appear, then dodge either clockwise or counterclockwise. Melees can get more uptime dodging counterclockwise, but dodging clockwise is generally safer. At the same time as the third weight appears, Titan will cast Landslide. Everyone on the melee side should be using Sprint here. Note that Landslide will snapshot a couple moments before Weight of the Land, so you can do this if you get trapped. Titan will do another tank buster soon after the landslide. The main tank should have all their mitigations off cooldown by then. Afterwards it will be Weight of the Land and Tumults, then Titan will enrage. Titan's Light Puddle will be picked up by a melee. Everyone needs to stack in the middle of the arena as 4 meteors drop on the edge for proximity damage. Standing even slightly outside the 4 marker can be deadly. 6 Magitech bits will spawn in a circle around the arena and start casting self-detonate. The caster will use LB3 to destroy them. The timing for this is very lenient. Just wait for the meteors to drop, then send it. Depending on damage variation, some of them can survive the LB3, so the rest of the party should attack them a little bit as well. From here on out, none of the LB3s can be used too early, only too late. Next, the whole party will get a Doom debuff that can only be cleansed with a healer LB3. La Habrea will appear and begin casting Dark 4. Use melee LB3 when it's available to take him down. The Ultima weapon will then finally show itself. Use tank LB3 as well as some light mitigation and or shields to survive the upcoming Ultima raid wide. If your LB bar was not full after defeating Titan, you will wipe. If this happens, avoid using target mitigations on the primals, as reducing their outgoing damage will also reduce your LB gain. The same problem can occur in the Ultima Phase. You will need another tank LB3 towards the end, but with clean play you might not fill the LB bar in time. There is a way to avoid this by generating a lot of LB at the start of the Ultima Phase. Whether or not this LB cheese is done will be the shield healer's decision, as it's mostly their responsibility that nothing goes wrong. Ultima will start the fight with a raid wide. If the outgoing damage from that raid wide is higher than a player's HP, this will generate a lot of LB. By applying big shields and reducing the incoming damage with party mitigation, such a hit can be survived. To achieve this, do not heal the party at all after the tank LB3 Ultima raid wide. Instead, let the shield healer carefully manage the healing, so the party will have around 10,000 HP and big shields when the raid wide hits. If all went well, you should have about 2 full LB bars and no corpses. Ultima's Ether bar will slowly charge up naturally and gain 4 extra points every time a player dies. If this bar fills before the end of the fight, Ultima will gain a damage buff, serving as an enrage. Tank Purge is a raid wide dealing medium damage. Ultima is Ultima's heavy raid wide. It requires a tank LB3 to survive and will also ignore resurrection immunity. Viscous Etherplasm is a debuff that will explode in a shareable AoE when it expires. It is applied with no prior indicator to the highest enmity player and anyone standing close to them as well. The main tank must be away from the group for the application and can then either stack to share the damage or mitigate and take it solo. Homing Laser targets the second highest enmity player for an AoE tank buster. Etheroplasm orbs spawn in front of Ultima. When touched by a player, they will pop, exploding in an AoE, dealing medium damage to every player hit and absorbing some of their ether for Ultima, raising Ultima's ether bar by 1 point for each player hit. If not touched, they will begin floating towards a random player and finally explode on their own. These orbs will later reappear, each split into 2 halves that slowly float towards each other. If they combine, they will explode and wipe the raid. To prevent this, they have to once again be touched by a player, making them explode in a shareable AoE. The starting distance between these orb halves is determined by how many players were hit earlier when that orb was popped. If the orb exploded by itself, then this distance will be near 0, making it impossible to pop them in time. After Ultima has absorbed the Woken Primals and Woken itself, it will open with a tank purge. The party will stack on the 4 marker, the main tank will be to the left of Ultima and the off tank to the right. Both tanks should have their tank stance activated, with the main tank also provoking the boss within the first couple GCDs. The main tank will be hit with a Viscous Etherplasm, then go stack with the party. The off tank will kitchen sink a Homing Laser, then also stack with the party. Then Ultima will cast Ultimate Predation and become untargetable. Ultima will appear on a random intercardinal, Ifrit on a different random intercardinal, Garuda closer to the middle on a random intercardinal, and Titan on one side of a random cardinal. There is a lot of variation here, but the solution will be very simple. Let's look at the worst case scenario as an example. The first thing you need to do is get to a cardinal wall, but you can never go to a cardinal direction next to Garuda and never go directly towards Titan. This will leave either 1 or 2, in this case just 1, viable option. Titan will then cast Landslide. When you see the lines appear, dodge either to the left or right of them, wherever you have more space. Don't go further than you have to, stay at the edge of the landslide. At the same time as the landslide goes off, Ifrit will dash and Garuda will perform Wicked Wheel. If you stay close to the landslide, you will always be safe here. Now look at the arena. Just outside the wall you can see runes on the floor. From your cardinal, count 4 runes, then the next safe spot will be in between the 4th and 5th rune at the wall. Either one will be fine, unless Ultima is standing directly next to one of them, making it unsafe. Start running as soon as you see the landslide disappear, or if you prefer an audio cue, when you hear Ifrit dash. If you were forced to dodge towards Ultima before, as in this example, use sprint. Otherwise, the second dodge will be extremely tight. Titan's second landslide, Ifrit's afterburn and Garuda's wicked wheel donut will then all go off at the same time. Ultima will also do a small circle AoE. Stay at the wall for a feather rain, then dodge into the arena. Here's another example with an easier pattern. Don't worry if people go in other directions than you, there are usually several safe spots. As Ultima reappears, the ranged DPS will go to the south wall to bait upcoming eruptions. The rest of the party will stack behind the A marker. Titan will drop on whichever intercardinal is the furthest away from Ultima's current position. As Ultima spawns in the middle of the arena, the main tank should pull Ultima slightly towards the A marker to make Titan spawn in the south. By standing a bit to the left, the main tank can bait Titan to the southwest cardinal consistently. The eruptions are baited along the wall, either together or separately. After the eruptions are over, Ultima will cast Radiant Plume. This cast is the one and only instance where the snapshot is not at the end of the cast. You have to wait for the plumes on the ground to disappear or they will hit you. At the same time, rocks will fall in the middle of the arena. To avoid both, everyone will stand very closely to the edge of the plumes. You can find the spot before the plumes even appear. It will always be on the intersection of those two lines on the floor. As soon as the plumes are gone, run towards the 1 marker. Both Titan and then Ultima will target a random player for a landslide. Titan's landslide will be woken, but Ultima's will only hit once. Wait for both landslides to appear, then dodge towards the side where Titan is, and then back towards 1 to stay clear of Titan's second landslide. The main tank will then move to Ultima's side on the left while the party stacks on the right side. There will be more rocks in the middle and a tumult from Titan. The main tank will be hit with viscous etherplasm, then the off tank will provoke. Shortly after the tumult's end, there will be a Mistral Shriek and 2 Feather Rains. The party will dodge the first Feather Rain counterclockwise around Ultima and stack for the second. The main tank will stay away from the party and use their invuln after the first Feather Rain. Ultima will cast Homing Laser, which should be targeting the main tank. The invuln will cover both the laser and the viscous etherplasm. Then everyone will stack between the A and D markers for the next big mechanic. Ultimate Annihilation has a lot of moving parts. Thinking about all of them can be overwhelming at first, so just start by focusing on your own job. Ultima will appear in the north. The party should be stacked roughly at its right foot. Garuda will spawn in the south. Ifrit and Titan will spawn to her left and right randomly. For this example, let's assume Titan is west and Ifrit east. Titan will cast Weight of the Land and Ifrit Flaming Crush. Everyone will dodge the first weight to the right. As the second weight appears, Garuda will target a random player for a Miso High Tether. The second weight is dodged back to Ultima's right foot. The Phase range should already try to secure the tether while staying close to the party, especially if they have the Flaming Crush target on them. Flaming Crush will then resolve as the third weight appears, and now the party will split up. Both tanks and one melee will dodge east and pop an Etheroplasm Orb that will spawn at Ultima's left foot. The Phase range will dodge south and bring the tether close to the C marker. The healers will dodge west and spot heal the melee taking orbs. The remaining DPS will dodge north and stay close to the edge of the Weight of the Land AoE. The tank group will continue straight to the right of Ultima and wait there briefly. The Miso High Tether will resolve and a random healer will be targeted for Searing Wind. Now everyone waits for the upcoming Feather Rain. The tank group will dodge back to Ultima's left foot, where another orb will spawn. The Phase range will start making their way to the 1 marker, going through the east side of the arena to avoid Feather Rains. The Searing Wind healer will start running south. The other healer will dodge towards the 1 marker, but be careful about rogue Feather Rains. The Searing Wind healer will then be standing south at the wall, the rest of the party on the 1 marker. Everyone should pop sprint as they arrive at their destination. Titan will cast Landslide and Ifrit will dash. As soon as Ifrit's dash goes off, everyone will start running. The Searing Wind healer and the main tank will run in the direction away from Titan. The rest of the group will always run to the 2 marker. Another Etheroplasm Orb will spawn in the same location as before. The main tank will run towards it quickly to pop it before it starts moving. The Searing Wind will pulse exactly as the main tank is going for the orb, so try not to run in too early with Searing. Garuda will also reappear with another Miso High Tether. This one will be taken by the Searing Wind healer. An Eye of the Storm will cover the edge of the arena. The party should stay at the edge of this AoE to avoid being hit by the Searing Wind. The Searing Wind healer will grab the tether and go further south after Eye of the Storm resolves, while the main tank goes in to pop the final Etheroplasm Orb. Ultima will start casting Tank Purge. The Miso High Tether will resolve, Garuda will jump for a Feather Rain, then Tank Purge will go off. As during the Ifrit phase, the Searing Wind healer should focus on healing themselves, as the Tether plus Tank Purge combo can be deadly. The non-Searing healer will make sure the party is healthy. Afterwards, there will be another Eye of the Storm and one more Searing Wind pulse. The Annihilation sequence will always be the same. The only variation is in the 2 possible spawn locations for Titan. If Titan is east, then the Searing Wind healer will dodge west instead, and the main tank should go with the party, running in for the orb from this side. Not having to get past Titan's second landslides makes this route much safer, while the slightly increased distance to the orb is negligible. When Ultima reappears, there will be an Eye of the Storm and one more Searing Wind Pulse, then a homing laser. The off-tank will stand to the left and use their invuln for it. If pushed under 50% HP, Ultima will skip the remaining mechanics and go straight to ultimate suppression. If Ultima's HP is not yet below 50%, there will be an Eye of the Storm into Radiant Plumes, followed by a Refraction, a very wide cone-shaped AoE tank buster on the main tank. Next is Eye of the Storm and a Vulcan Burst, so the shield healer should put shields on the party. Ultima will cast another homing laser, then Vulcan Burst again. So remember to shield. Finally, there is another Refraction, then Ultima will cast Ultimate Suppression regardless of its HP. During Suppression, Ultima will be untargetable. The tanks will go southwest, while the rest of the party will line up at the wall between west and north-northeast. You can stand closer together, but having more space will make things easier. Ultima, the Primals, and 2 Garuda clones will spawn in these locations. 3 random players will receive eruptions. The purpose of the lineup is to let everyone see if they have an eruption or not. The lineup order is agreed upon during the transition phase. While Ultima is absorbing the Primals, everyone will stand at the wall to indicate their spot for this mechanic. As soon as the eruptions start, everyone will start running to the 4 marker, while 2 random players that did not get eruptions will be targeted for Mistral songs by the clones. A random player with eruptions will then be targeted for a jail. 1 player will have received nothing. Everyone will keep running to the 4 marker without stopping in between. From the 4 marker, the eruption players will go behind the clone at the 3 marker. The others will stack behind the tanks. Tanks can use the lines on the floor to pre-position like this. The jail player will stay behind the clone, while the other 2 eruption players dodge the last eruption north. Feather lances will start circling the edge of the arena. Touching them will kill you instantly and anyone around you, so stay far away from the wall. Clones will shoot their Mistral song, but don't move away yet. Garuda will do a large cleave and the clones will jump away for 2 feather rains. Stay where you are until you hear the first scream, then run out. The player who got nothing before will now be targeted by 6 light beams that will follow them around. They will start running north behind the A marker without stopping, passing behind the D marker to lengthen the distance. Everyone else will dodge to the middle, wait for the second feather rain, then run on top of the jail. Ultima will also shoot 3 laser AoEs one at a time in a random order. If you follow this movement though, they should never hit you. Start hitting the jail as soon as you can. When the jail player is freed, everyone will stack on the B marker. Titan will target a random player with Landslide, and Garuda will tether a random player. The main tank will run northwest, grabbing the tether and making their way onto the northern landslide to dodge the second landslide hit. Everyone else will dodge south as Ifrit starts a Flaming Crush. When the landslide disappears, go back to stack on the B marker. Flaming Crush and Miso High Tether will resolve, then Garuda will jump for a Feather Rain and Ultima will cast Tank Purge. This happens pretty fast, so heal up quickly after the Flaming Crush. Ultima will then reappear and cast Ultima. Use tank LB3 and shields for this. Aetheric Boom will then knock everyone back and spawn 4 sets of tethered Etheroplasm orbs. The tanks will get knocked back southwest, use all their self-mitigation and LB1. The party will get knocked back southeast. Only use short cooldown mitigations here, as you will need more later. Explode both southern orb pairs by touching one of the orbs and heal up quickly. The tanks will go to the northwest orbs, the party to the northeast orbs and pop those as well. Then everyone will stack on the 1 marker for the final mechanic. In the Primal Roulette, Ultima will give 3 random players a viscous Etherplasm debuff, then summon the Primals one at a time in a semi-random order. There are only 3 possible orders the Primals can be summoned in. Garuda, then Ifrit, then Titan, Ifrit, then Garuda, then Titan, Titan, then Ifrit, then Garuda. They will each perform a simple mechanic, while one of the Etherplasms explode each time, then finish with their heavy raid wide. The first and third Primal's raid wide will be mitigated by the shield healer alone. The rest of the party will use their mitigations on the second Primal's raid wide. When Garuda is summoned, she will cast Wicked Wheel. 1 Etherplasm charge will explode after it goes off, so make sure to be stacked. After Garuda's raid wide, everyone will stack on A, wait for a Feather Rain, then dodge to the 1 marker for the next Primal. When Ifrit is summoned, he will dash on an intercardinal. Everyone will stand on the 1 marker and pop sprint, then run to the 2 marker when the dash goes off. The Etherplasm will explode then. After Ifrit's raid wide, stay on the 2 marker. When Titan is summoned, he will cast Weight of the Land. You will be starting on either the 1 or 2 marker, depending on the primal order. Dodge Weight of the Land back and forth between those markers. The Etherplasm will explode after the second weight. After Titan's heavy raid wide, everyone has to go back to the 1 marker to dodge Ifrit's dash afterwards. After the roulette is over, there will be no more mechanics. Ultima will start charging up its ether bar until it is full, then start imprisoning and killing the party 1 player at a time, starting with the player who did the least damage and ending with the highest damage player whom it will absorb instead.